All right, well, good afternoon, all. Welcome to July's Tech Night and Network Tech Talk, albeit occurring today in the afternoon. It is wonderful to see everyone digitally this afternoon as we are being broadcasted virtually via Zoom. And of course, for those of you either watching from home at a later time as this is being recorded, for the convenience of later viewing. Thank you for checking us out for, again, this July Tech Night and Network Tech Talk. For those of you that have not attended in the past, Central Maine Tech Night is a monthly, typically evening event where in our small group setting, founders and leaders share real advice on how they overcame challenges, capitalized on their target market, and developed their product, providing you with actionable insight for your own products and processes. You may find us on Facebook or online at centralmaine.org at the Tech Night tab. I would like to thank our sponsors for this afternoon. This free event is presented by Central Maine Growth Council and is sponsored by CGI, Thomas College's Harold Alfond Institute for Business Innovation, Valley Beverage, and Bricks Coworking and Innovation Space, located at 10 Water Street in the Hathaway Creative Center, downtown Waterville, Maine. Of course, Bricks is typically our physical location when we're not going remote. July's Network Tech Talk is when working remotely is part of your new normal, strategies and technologies to optimize your routine, by RJ Anzelc, founder of Bricks Coworking and Innovation Space and Director of Professional Services at ideaPOINT, where he also works remotely. This evening, you will hear from RJ and his perspective on working remotely, both previously, pre-COVID and currently. As for many workers, remote work is no longer a short-term change from a normal office routine. Working remotely is part of the new normal in many respects, whether it's full remote until the end of the year, a hybrid model of working remotely and going into the office once a week, or perhaps your office is shifting to be a full-time remote for the foreseeable future. How do you successfully work remotely when it's part of your long-term routine and not a temporary change? In this Tech Talk, RJ, founder of Bricks Coworking and Innovation Space and remote worker for ideaPOINT, will share what other companies are doing during this new normal, strategies for carving out a work-life balance, and technologies to help you manage, optimize your new routine. Again, welcome everybody. For those of you that have questions or comments, we do, as folks know, like to keep these events casual. Please feel free to drop any questions into the comments section. Likewise, if time allows, we would certainly love to open things up for a broader Q&A conversation as well. So without further ado, RJ, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And I believe also certainly a Tech Night alum, and now today on the other side of Tech Night and being a Tech Talk presenter. So thank you and welcome.
Thanks, Garvin. Thanks everybody for joining and watching later on. Let me get this going. All right, so today I'm gonna tell you a little bit about myself, kind of just talk about remote work a little bit. I think we all know what it is, but there's some details to it I kind of want to discuss. Lessons I've learned over my few years working remotely and strategies off of those to help you succeed. Some technologies you or your employer can help leverage to make you more effective working remotely. Trends overall, especially in the time of COVID-19, and then opportunities for Maine, like how we can take advantage of this as a state and as employers and employees in the state. So jump right in. So as Garvin mentioned, I own Bricks Coworking and Innovation Space in Waterville, and it was really opened for this. So as a remote worker, I needed a space to go to. I work out of my basement. You know, a few notes down there. I have 3 boys at home, which is the ultimate remote working challenge, I say. So it was very helpful for me to have a space to go to and to accommodate some other remote workers in the area. We also have freelancers, some other small businesses, whatever it might be, but having that space to go to have coworkers that may not be working for the same company, but are working alongside you, sharing experiences, and it really helps your day get by with seeing some other people going through the same things as you. My main job is director at ideaPOINT, as Garvin mentioned. It's an innovation management software company based out of Boston. So high level, we have software that helps them manage the innovation, whether it be coming from outside sources or internal sources, to review, create partnerships, and evaluate those innovation pieces. And as a professional services director, we actually work directly with the clients to implement these solutions. So on a regular non-COVID situation, I'd be going on with client site, every 1 to 2 months, working with the client. But for the most part, we're working with the clients remotely as well. So we may be all in one office or in this area. However, we're working remotely with those clients. So I've been doing that for a little over 3 years, and that's kind of where my experience stems from. So when we talk about remote work, there's a few different types here. For me, I am a full-time remote person, and the rest of my team has an office. So this isn't quite the situation we're here with COVID-19, but some of you may face that, where your team really has that centralized office, and for mine, they're all in Boston. I'm actually the only full-time remote. I was the only full-time remote when I joined. So there's some headaches there. I'll kind of talk about those and how you get through those. A second type that I think we're seeing a lot more now is you have a centralized office and all the employees are working remote, either part-time or a little bit more full-time, especially in this time. That's what you see more in Maine as of now, kind of growing from there. And then these more tech companies have started to do more distributed teams, and that's everybody's remote. There may be some offices to go to, but with their tasks and work, they can essentially work remote at all times. So we tend to call that a distributed team, and you can be wherever you want, whenever you want. One of the biggest ones that does this is the product behind WordPress. They don't have an office there, wherever they want to be. And if you ever went to WordPress to find their employees, it brings up this big map, and there's some throughout Maine and some throughout the rest of the world. It's pretty neat. When it comes to remote work, the growth has been pretty dramatic. So in 2000, the amount of full-time remote employees was around 3%. Now it's close to 6%. So we've nearly doubled in the past 20 years. And that's pre-COVID. That's just standard full-time remote employees. If we look at people that work remotely at least, say, 1 day a week, that number is nearly 50% of the workforce, which I think is pretty incredible because a whole lot of the workforce really can't work remote. There's certain jobs where you physically have to be at your work. So for all those other jobs to be able to leverage this remote work, it's pretty impressive. When we look at why, there's different reasons for why employee versus employer. I think for the most part, if we look at this little graphic to the side for employees, most everybody says it's this work-life balance. It's the family life. You're able to be home, be with them. You're not having to commute. You're not having to go to work. You can spend more time with them. Obviously, there's other benefits there as well, cost savings. I don't know about avoiding office politics. Maybe that helps, but they're still there. So, but I would agree with the most part of that. For employers, there's a great amount of benefit there as well. So, again, you're giving that flexibility to your employees. You're creating happier employees. If it's that modular one where they can go into the office if they want or work from home if they want, it's kind of the ultimate flexibility. So you're not forcing them to be remote, but they could also be in the office. In general, if there's a thought that there's a productivity and output increase for working remotely, I tend to argue it a little bit. It's really kind of role-based, especially if you have to have high collaboration with your fellow employees. It's always more effective to be in person, to collaborate, get in the conference room, work through a problem. But as technologies improve, it's easier to do a digital whiteboard, say, instead of a physical whiteboard. And also the remoteness helps the employers with the job market. Like you expand your job market, your employee talent pool rather, from your local area to the whole world, hypothetically. When we talk about remote work, it kind of comes down to where are you working? Is the home office, coffee shop, shared workspace? I know whenever I go into Panera or Starbucks, there's a handful of people that are working out of those. And before Bricks, when I was working out of my office, I made sure at least 1 day a week, I went to a coffee shop. I went somewhere else just to give me a little change of scenery. So from my time working remote, a few lessons learned here, and there's obviously many, many more. But first of all, communication is king. I think this is the biggest takeaway from all of this is you need to over communicate. Especially when you're moving from a physical location to a remote location, you miss all those times when you just walk by somebody's desk and mention something, or you go over and help them with something. That's all lost. So communication is huge. So set up those meetings, spend time with everybody, send a chat, send an email. It's just highly, highly important. And this is even more so important if you're the only one that's remote, because you're missing out on those communications that are happening in the office. I know I went through this with ideaPOINT when I first joined. I was really the first full-time remote employee, and they'd forget to invite me to meetings. Like they'd have a physical meeting in a conference room and I wouldn't get the invite because they wouldn't think of it. They'd have some casual conversations. So I'd miss out on that, on not necessarily cooler talk either. It'd be work talk. Next one, be available, but not too available. I think you can easily fall into the hole that now that your office is just down the hall, or even maybe it's on your couch, on your dining room table, your kitchen table, you're just there all the time. It's right there. You can always start working. But it's extremely important to make sure everybody knows you're available, but not too available. So set some boundaries, set some time frames. Personally, I like to work a little earlier and get out earlier. So I'll start between like 6 and 7 a.m. and I try to finish up by around 4. So it gives me some time with the family. I might log back on a little later. And I make that very clear to everybody I work with so that they know, hey, you know, it's 5 o'clock. RJ's probably not on, but I know he'll be back on later or early tomorrow morning. So just be very, very clear with everybody on that as well. I think this is one of the biggest ones is your chores will still be there after work. It's always in the back of your head. You're like, oh, I could go up and mow the lawn. I could go do this. I could get the laundry done. And maybe you're able to do that and then refocus. But I find it much more effective to say, I am working from 8 to 5 or 8 to 12, and then I have an hour break for lunch and I'll do some chores, and then I'm working from 1 to 5. You know, set those time boundaries on yourself. Because if you're thinking about those chores all day, or if you start doing them, you know, amidst your day while you're working, you just lose focus and then you think more about non-work stuff. And it makes it very difficult to focus and get your job done. To that, take breaks. I mean, if you're in the office, you're pretty much constantly distracted. Somebody might ask you a question, go to the bathroom, the kitchen, water cooler, whatever it might be. Sometimes I think people sit down and just work all day when they're at home. And I know employers think that that's one of the reasons why they think they're more productive is they're just sitting there and working all day, but it's not healthy. You need to take those breaks, get outside, take a walk, get a drink of water, whatever you need, but make sure you set some time aside to remind yourself. I know my Apple Watch reminds me every hour just to stand up at least, and something I forget. So along the communication lines, don't rely too heavily on your email and chat. It's so easy to fall into that with all the great tools out, Skype, Slack, Teams, you know, all the emails, it's on your phone. You seem to get so much done via email and chat, but pick up that phone, get on the video chat, see your coworkers' faces, talk to them. Often can be so much more productive just to talk things through, and then send that follow-up email so it's documented. I know I love to have stuff documented, and that's why I love the email piece, but do that phone, do the video chat, document it after, send the follow-up to what you guys discussed, and you know, also pick up the phone and call them and talk to them about how their weekend was. It's one of those things, again, that you miss once you're out of the office. So really make that a focal point for yourselves. And I mean, just to go back to this too, I mean, this is something that employers should be focusing on encouraging employees to do. Because it's one thing that really holds employees to their jobs. It's the part that they enjoy. It's those relationships they build with their coworkers. If you're not talking to them about non-work sometimes, you never get the chance to build those. So you may end up with unhappy employees strictly because they just don't have those relationships there that make them value their job as much. Something I like to do, and using my extra time for things that aren't work. So this is the commute. So for instance, I drive a half an hour to the co-working space. So an hour a day is my drive. Normally I take that and I listen to some audiobooks. Sometimes I work from home. Instead of leaving at 7, I start work at 7. I skip that extra time and I spend more time working. I think a really nice value add for your life is take that extra time, take that lunch time, take that commute time, those times that you needed to spend to get to and from work, and do something for personal growth there instead. You know, watch some videos you're interested in, read the paper, whatever it might be that you kind of want to focus on. It's a great little value add for yourself on those days you work remote or if you work full-time remote. I found this graphic online. I thought it was pretty neat, kind of walking through the different strategies to succeed, and this kind of piggybacks off of the lessons learned. And we'll kind of go through a few of these, but the first one's a really neat one. So experiment with your work setup. I know people that have dedicated desks. I know people that have a dining table. I know people that work outside sometimes. So experiment with it, but I also think you should set up a structure with it. Find that desk that works the best for you. And when you need to sit down and focus, you go to that spot. So for me, I have a setup with a desk, I have multiple monitors, and when I need to just get through work, I go there, put my headphones on, and I know that's where I can kind of bust through everything. If I have more casual meetings or something I can listen to, or I'm writing a paper, whatever it might be, then maybe I go to one of those more casual settings. But I kind of have a few different spots set up where I know, all right, here I can focus on work, here I can read, and here I can write. I think that really helps. Two, we talked about this, boundaries. Like again, set those boundaries on yourself and your family. It's a little harder with 3 little boys, but they now understand, all right, daddy's going downstairs, he's gonna work. And that's honestly generally where I have to stay. As soon as I come upstairs, I'm fair game. So it's a difficult one, but definitely one to work toward. Accountability, and this kind of comes back to just the extra time. Create some accountability in yourself to be online at 7, be online at 8 a.m. Maybe even put on your shirt and pants. Like don't come down in your jammies or your sweatshirt, whatever it might be, and put something accountability wise on there for showing up and being that person you need to be for work. 5, I think this one kind of goes, this one doesn't happen as much, and we're dealing with this right now. As I mentioned, we are almost fully remote, and we have meetings, and most of the people don't do video chat. And I think it may be partly because of the previous one where they didn't get dressed to be able to look suitable for work. But I think this is extremely important, especially if you're a leader in your group, if you're managing people. I think it's right to set that precedent where you're going to show your face, you're going to show that you're there, you're smiling, you're happy, and you're talking directly to your employees. And I think it's a great thing to grow and encourage everybody to join video wise. A lot of my clients actually, it's a rule at their sites to do that. 6, again, communicating clearly, and this is around everything. This is, these are my hours. This is what I'm going to work. Make sure everybody understands what that's going to be. Here are my distractions, and especially you've seen this in COVID-19. Prior to this, my kids would yell, my dog would bark, and I felt really bad. Like I felt like I was the only remote person on that call that was having these distractions. Now, with everybody working remote, I feel like everybody has those distractions, but just make sure everybody knows, where you're at, what you're doing. And 7, this is kind of coming back to just taking the time for yourself, just work on your health. It's so easy just to sit down and work nonstop, but definitely do that. The last one I just want to speak to is 10, take time to socialize, work with your team, talk to your team, set up happy hours digitally if you want. We've done that quite a few Thursdays at my company, and we just all get on there and talk about what's going on. Just forget about work for a little bit and work on those relationships. So I encourage you to do that with your coworkers or however you can, and it's a tremendous thing to do. So when it comes to technologies, I mean, this list could be obviously much, much, much bigger. But I kind of highlighted a few here across different platforms, and some of these kind of cross all of these. So for instance, Teams, I listed in communication collaboration. Teams is something that we actually use every day for almost everything. It's where we manage a lot of our projects. It's where we communicate. We do all of our video conferencing on it, and actually we store all of our documents on it. So we use that literally across the board for us. We're a Microsoft house. It comes free with what we need to do, and it works very, very well. So, find those resources that work well for you. We're kind of hitting on a few of these, and I mean, some of these obviously are at cost. Some of them are not at cost. Some can benefit you personally, just working remotely, and some help your team. For project management, here's a couple. Trello is one in particular where I personally use it for my own projects. It's a great way to manage it, to create your own boards and manage what you need to do. But they also have a great product for companies. So if you wanted to expand and do your project management across it, that's a great one. Communication-wise, collaboration-wise, I think Slack's the kind of de facto, but there's other ones out there. Envision, if anybody's not familiar, is a great one. If you are mocking up software or a website or whatever it might be, you're able to very easily create that for everybody else and interact, to get feedback on how it looks and work through it. Friday is one I actually want to mention. This is a Maine company that's focused on remote works and remote teams. How to enable your remote teams to work more effectively. So I encourage you all to check out Friday. I think it's friday.app maybe. But it's a team, I think, based out of Portland that's working on this very problem, and I think they're doing very well. Video
RJ, do you mind?
conferencing. Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
Yeah,
off there.
yeah,
Just going back to either your beginning points, and apologies to step on you, in terms of some of
yeah.
this new technologies and maybe as a new remote worker at one time, did you ever experience maybe pushback's the wrong word in terms of integrating a new tool or a platform into your
Yeah.
work environment? And if you did, what does that look like in, you know, with regards to us all now, we all kind of may like our Google Suite or Slack.
Sure.
And what was that? What did that look like for you?
No, that's a really, really good point. So we benefited from this pre-COVID-19 because we were already in Teams using it like as a team. So when we went fully remote, we were really already enabled for what we needed to do. But when I first came on remote, yeah, we were Outlook. All meetings were in person. We didn't really do shares. We didn't have video chat. We didn't really even have very good call-ins. When I called in, it was awful. It was one of those little phones in the middle of the room. So there's definitely some challenges there, especially across project management, where it was more traditionally stored in one person's computer or on paper. So it sometimes takes a management change. And again, it goes back to those different types of remote, where if you're the only full-time remote employee, it's likely your company doesn't have the technologies there to support you as much because they're focused on everybody in the office. Whereas if you're a distributed team, your corporate function is literally built around you guys interacting as well as possible in a remote function. So as we see people with the COVID-19 kind of breaking out and doing their own thing, yeah, it's very difficult to kind of hone yourselves on what are we going to use? Like, I like this, and you need a strong IT presence. So, you know, we luckily have a very good IT team, CIO that set the direction. We're going to be using this, and this. We used to use GoToMeeting. We used to use Microsoft and Skype. And a few other things, and we consolidated everything to Teams. And that came from the top. Here's what you're using. There's obviously pushback, but that's something that helps a tremendous amount, is to have that leadership to push it. And if you find something that you really like push it up the board. So Trello is one that I love for project management. I pushed it up, and we just couldn't get it certified and couldn't get it approved to be used in a broader audience. So I still use it remotely. I mean, on my own personal things, but it's definitely a challenge to integrate different needs. And again, some of these are free, some of them are not. Like Zoom, you can use for free up to, I think, 40 minutes for some time. Google Meets, parts of that's are free. GoTo is kind of the de facto in the video conferencing, but it's quite expensive. And then it comes to like document management. So, I mean, thinking you're like you're a realtor, or even selling cars now. I'm sure if Chris Gaunt's on here, but you can buy a car just remotely now. You don't even have to go to the place. And some of these things make it that much more feasible, where you're able to send your documents, have people sign it, store it digitally. I mean, some things are a whole lot easier than having to do things in a physical manner. So check them out. If you have anything in particular you need to solve, by all means, reach out to me. I'd be happy to discuss any of the
RJ,
solutions I've worked. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
sorry. And speaking of that, I think I'm going to unmute David. He is raising his hand with a question, probably about this.
Hey, Dave. Dave?
Oh, maybe.
Dave probably knows some project management tools. He's a good.
Oh, okay.
He's a good project manager. Okay, we can pop back if he has a question about any of that.
Okay, yeah, David, feel free to do that. Okay, sorry, RJ.
Yeah, no worries. So again, if you have any questions about any of these, I'd be happy to talk to you. I've worked with I haven't actually used Friday, I want to, but I work with pretty much everything else among many others. And you know, they all have their pros and cons, different costs, some free, but it's finding that right mix that works for your team, trying them out, just getting in there and try them. You can always speak the hypothetical, but try them out, see how they work for your team, and then try another one. So with COVID-19, just some trends that I've seen kind of popping up, and especially from these bigger companies. All these ones I mentioned here, Twitter, Square, Slack, Shopify, and Facebook have taken something for motion on working remotely. So for instance, Twitter's CEO, Jack Dorsey, you see his quote right here: "We want employees to be able to work where they're most creative and productive." So he said this to Twitter. He said, "You can all work remote forever," I think is actually the phrase he used. Soon after, he's actually the CEO of Square too, which is a little crazy, but he told them that they could all work remotely forever as well. So again, he understands the flexibility, the creative nature of his employees, where they'd be more productive. And I think they're going to be one of the ones where they have the offices. So if you need that office to go to, they're going to have it for you. But if you want to work remotely, you want to work from Bali or wherever you want to work from, you can. And he understands that works. And it works for them because they're a digital company. They can be wherever they want to do what they need to do. Slack is kind of a funny one. They're essentially going almost fully remote, and they're like the de facto of working remote. It's the product you use, and they were not remote before this. So for them to become more of a distributed team based on their own technology is kind of a neat thing to come out of this. Shopify, they're not huge, but they're going digital by default. So by default, they're hiring remote. They'll have some offices, but you do not have to go to an office to do it. I think one of the biggest ones, and this may be a surprise or not to people, but Facebook. You can see Mark Zuckerberg's quote here: "We're going to be the most forward-leaning remote work at our scale." They have 45,000, 50,000, something like that, employees. They've been known to have these campuses where on campus you have everything you need. You get your laundry done, you have your food, you have video games. They kind of made it to be a fun park so that all their employees wouldn't really ever want to leave. They want to keep working. And for them to shift how they do things, I think is pretty impressive and telling of where things are going. And again, I kind of said that. Yeah, go ahead.
So sorry, tried to get the break there. David just wanted to comment that MS Teams has a planner tool that works very much like Trello, and was wondering if you had experience with that and maybe what your comparison is.
Yeah, so I'll call Dave after. So I'm literally going through this transition right now. We're moving our stuff to SharePoint and Teams. I'll go back to this. So we use Teams, Skype, SharePoint, so all Microsoft House. We use a product, that Planner, which Microsoft just keeps acquiring things. So we use Planner now for our task management. And we're actually starting to integrate DevOps, Microsoft DevOps, which is more in line with software development. But we're using that to help our task management and integrate it with our code. So we're kind of pulling in a bunch of different stuff Microsoft-wise into it. But yeah, Dave, I've started to use Planner, and it's a little bare bone, but it hits what we need to do for it. So we've enjoyed it. Okay. I was gonna say, I kind of head into the big companies here. I know a whole lot of other companies have done this. Even local companies have started to go remote. These are some of the bigger ones that maybe you thought they already were remote, maybe you didn't know, but it's impressive to see these come out of these larger companies. So when I was talking to Garvin and Elaine about this, we really wanted to talk about just the opportunities for Maine around this. I think there's a huge opportunity here. And you may have heard of Live and Work in Maine. They're doing a great job on what they're calling boomerangs, so people leaving the state and coming back. We have a huge amount of attrition from our talent leaving our schools and going out of state, because that's where the jobs are. There isn't a big enough job market, even though there really kind of is in a lot of areas. And they're doing a tremendous job in helping bring people back. But how I like to phrase it for this is, how about live in and work from Maine? So come back, get the lifestyle in Maine, and work for somebody else. It's what I do. I was born and raised in Maine. I don't want to leave Maine. I've got a great job in Boston. I go down there. I don't now, but before COVID-19, I went down like once a month, got to enjoy the office, enjoy the city, and then come back and work from here. So you get that lifestyle, you get everything you get about Maine, but you get that big city product, that software you want to work on, wherever it might be. You can live here and work for anybody else anywhere. I think this is, two real benefits here to the employees and the employer. So for employee, this is huge. You have opportunities anywhere. It's not just about the jobs that are posted in Maine. You can work for somebody in San Francisco, wherever it is. Freedom to live where you want. Again, you can live in Maine. You could travel. I have friends that travel around, every couple of months, and just go to different places because they work remote and they can. They clearly don't have 3 kids, because you can't do that with 3 kids. But I'll put a little con on this: benefits to employee with this being able to work from anywhere and get jobs anywhere. It's a whole lot more competition. Like, somebody down the road, how many people are going to apply for that job? Maybe 20 or 30. You want to apply for a software developer job at Facebook while they're working remote, there's probably like 10,000 people applying for that. So it doesn't mean it's going to be easier to get a job, but it just means if you work hard and get that job you want, you can be here doing that. And ensuring there's the benefits to the employer. So again, on the flip side of that, there's this larger pool of employees. So no longer is the tech company in Waterville having to look for only staff here in Waterville. They can pull talent from anywhere. You may have to pay what that talent is for where you're trying to recruit from. You know, if you're trying to recruit somebody from Boston, you have to pay, you know, Boston prices. But you're going to be able to get that talent that you wouldn't be able to get if you weren't opening it up like this. You may not need the office space. There potentially is a cost savings there. Would not need the office space. I generally wouldn't say it's a cost savings though, because I think employers should reinvest that money in their remote employees, like get them the perks they need for sit-stand desks and you know, high-speed internet, whatever else they need to help enable them to work from home. So hypothetically, it's a cost savings, but I kind of contend that. And then obviously, this really all came out of just those technologies that you can leverage to do this. Employers just couldn't do this previously, and now they can. So with that, live and work in Maine, I can send this link out, or this link will be posted. But this is actually a survey that Live and Work in Maine is doing to evaluate remote workers in Maine. Were you doing this pre-COVID, post-COVID? What do you expect your new normal to be? I'd encourage everybody to get out there if you're doing remote work and respond to these. And I guess actually it's a good, something I didn't mention before is heading to this new normal. So have those talks with your employees or employers about what that goal might be, what that new normal might be. I don't know if we're ever going to get back to the regular normal, but there's going to be something there. And that's something we're working through as ideaPOINT. Right now, Boston has some restrictions. So like we are, I think 25% scale at office is what we can be. Employees are going back 1 to 2 days a week and remote 3 to 4 days a week. Pre-COVID, it was in the office probably 4 days a week, remote 1 day a week. So we're working toward what that new normal is going to be. And we're kind of thinking it's going to be, you're in the office 3 days a week, 3 or maybe 4, and you're remote probably 2. So just kind of figuring out with your team what that's going to be, what that's going to look like, and what you're going to need to enable them to do that on a more regular basis. You know, do they need the monitors? Do they need the desks? How can you make that more effective? And if your employer's not giving that to you or not talking about that, I encourage you to ask them and kind of show them what other companies are doing, because you know, I think they really should. You need to make sure that you are being taken care of at home as well.
And just really quickly, RJ, we got a comment in the comment section. I'm sure some folks saw, but I think dovetailing out of a point you made, and a good point from the both supply and demand side of, as RJ puts it, live in, work from Maine, is this opportunity may be comparatively speaking to potentially draw that large tier 1, tier 2 city salary, and then have, frankly, that tier 1 quality of life with the lower median family incomes and median family home sale prices that seem to be so attractive right now, and what we're seeing from out migration. So I think that's a nice point in the comment section.
That's it. I'm going to open up for questions, Governor, if you guys have any questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Open it up for questions. I will, and thank you so much, RJ. I think that was really helpful. Nice kind of insight from your experience, particularly as a kind of local leader in tech innovation, now certainly remote work. So thank you for all of this. And I will plug, and we'll drop in the comment section, RJ's providing, that for those of you that are visually watching this and not just listening, we do have a link on the screen for a survey that's being run. That's the Live, Work in Maine survey.
Yeah.
So, and they are doing some statistical analysis on what we're seeing in migration patterns of workers and remote workers coming into Maine. So we would love for folks to fill that out. We will open this up to a Q&A right now. Maybe while folks are thinking about any questions or would like to drop it in the comment section, maybe start off with an easy one, RJ. Could you give us kind of your remote work starter kit, if you would, with kind of a, you know, on a smaller, a moderate budget, like maybe what's your setup look like, or kind of what's the 101 starter kit for remote working? Sure.
So I think it comes a bit down to your task man, you know, what you're doing for task wise, but at least get yourself 1 extra monitor. You know, I tend to do at least 2 just because of what I'm working on. But at least 1 extra monitor, that external, you know, mouse and keyboard, so you're not working off your laptop. Just uncomfortable, you kind of sit crunched over that laptop all day. So I think that's the biggest thing right off the bat. Get that. Number 2, a good headset. So you're going to be on your phone far more than you were in the office. If I was in the office, I mean, I'd have maybe an hour of meetings. I'm on the phone probably 6 to 7 hours a day. So, I have the AirPods. I have actually another set that I use on my computer because of international companies I work with. I can't use my phone how I use it. So I think that's the next biggest thing is a headset. And then number 3, ergonomics. If you can afford it, get sit stand something. There are tabletop ones you can use that are, I think, a couple $100, and just a little click on the side, goes up, goes down. If you can afford a desk, or if you can fit a desk, it just changes the way you work to be able to stand up here and there and still get your stuff done. That's really set it apart for me, especially working with Bricks. We have them all here. And I wasn't here for about 2 months during COVID, and I was going crazy not having that. And I was on the verge of buying one for my office, my home office as well. So those are probably the 3 biggest things I'd say. Third one being the expensive one, but the first 2, you can find deals at Staples or Walmart, wherever it might be, to get them pretty cheap.
Let me just scan. We do have a comment here in the section.
Oh, Garvin, just a note.
Yep.
Also ask your employer. Again, if this is a long-term strategy for your employer, they should be providing some of these things. That's just part of it. If you're starting to eat through your phone, most things are unlimited now, but it's always something good to ask is, can I get some reimbursement for using my phone this much? But definitely ask about that infrastructure and then just a healthier lifestyle. You see a lot of people doing ergonomic checks in the office. It doesn't happen nearly as much at the house. So it's definitely worth it. It's going to save them down the road as well from all of that.
I'll just keep going here for now. I think you made a kind of a powerful point on kind of articulating the potential value of remote working, both productivity or for the employee and the employer, but also recognizing that in particular in this moment in time, this has put really a premium on that face-to-face communication and the value of either connecting with your employees or still having that outlet to engage, that stickiness that we see when innovation kind of abounds and people are together. RJ, can you just touch on kind of your experience on some of those interpersonal relationships that you kind of brushed up against? Like, how often are you guys doing some of those happy hours? What does
Sure.
a week look like in terms of making sure that you're respectful and reaching out to employees when you can't have that invaluable face-to-face?
Yeah, sure. So regarding the happy hour, when COVID-19 hit, I think about a month in, we did it pretty regularly, and it kind of fell off. I think we were doing it weekly, and people kind of just got tired of it and stopped joining it, and maybe just didn't want to see their fellow employees anymore. But I still think it's a great idea to set up, even if nobody shows up, if only a couple show up. It's great to show you're doing that. So I haven't done a great job with that, but that is something we were doing early on. Regarding the rest of it, I try to check in with everybody I work with a couple times a week, once at least professionally, like what's going on, and at least once like how's life, just whether it be a chat, a call, an email, whatever it might be. I try to just check in with everybody and see how it's going, get an update, see if anything's going wrong with them. And my team's pretty small. We've got 10 on my team, so it's not too much for me to talk to everybody. But I want to make sure if there's any red flags, if anybody's just completely hating it. I've got a couple young people on my staff that have like 4 roommates. So I talk to them and try to encourage them to leave their house whenever they can, go somewhere else, and just kind of help them along. And then we meet a little more often now. So like I said, I'm on the phone just a ton every week, and we meet, Derek's probably on here. We meet like every Monday and Thursday now. So it's kind of like start the week, let's talk, let's see what's going on. Thursday, let's talk again and see how things are going and what we need to prep for next week. So it's those things that we would have had more casually in an office that we need to focus a bit more on in talks.
Awesome, thank you. You did touch on this a little bit, but kind of more broadly speaking, and from your experience, in your opinion, how can employers support their employees through this transition? And maybe what was helpful for you when you first went full-time remote work, you as the employee, and kind of what did your employer do to help, or maybe not help?
Sure. Yeah, I think the question you asked earlier about the infrastructure, like those core things you need, having the employer provide those to you, I think is huge. I don't I don't know that we did that, but I think it's something tremendous if you start doing this. It's going to become the new normal to provide the technologies you need. If you don't have one of these collaboration tools to be able to work with your team, I can't imagine working remotely. If it's strictly via Outlook, via email and phone calls, it would be extremely difficult for me to get my job done. So having these companies establish whatever tool it is, any of these tools are better than none of them. So as long as they establish something for a tool that you can leverage to work and collaborate remotely, that's just a tremendous step forward. And again, I think just encourage again to have those casual conversations, to remote, to video chat, to see other people's faces. It's so difficult not seeing anybody every day, especially if you were doing that before.
Yeah, awesome, thank you. And so, and to that end, you know, you founded a co-working space for remote workers and entrepreneurs, and I know it's still early on, but have you noticed any trends within this, within kind of Bricks's segment, if you will, since COVID, and you know, where do you see that trend line, if anything's emerging yet?
Sure. So actually, I'm part of a co-working group with the UCD as well. So we meet every couple of weeks. And Portland kind of always gets hit first. So we've talked to the Portland crew, and they have seen a massive upsurge in out-of-staters that are working here, like whether it be for now, like more than they normally get in the summer, or more permanently. They're just kind of moving up, working remotely here. So they've seen a pretty huge upsurge there. I've seen it at a smaller scale. So what I have seen is people are a little less inclined to work side by side somebody. So I've started to space stuff out here at Bricks, so you're not as close to your coworker. So we've seen that pushback, lost some members there. But I've seen a lot more asks about how can I get into a private office, a flexible office, a little bit more of a space there. So you're definitely seeing the backdraft of this, where people are looking for those places to go that isn't their house. They know on a more permanent basis they're not going to be able to go to the office. So where else can I go? So I've definitely seen an uptick on that, and it just, again, it's the tough restriction of being so close to people that's still making it a little difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, maybe, you know, again, you touched on this a little bit, but how, just to kind of underscore, how do you think Maine can capitalize on either rural remote working, or whether it's, you know, specifically tech and innovation related to overcoming or becoming resilient as it relates to COVID-19? We sometimes talk about some of the great businesses that emerged in the 07, 08 recession. Again, broadly for Maine specifically, and as a leader in the space, kind of beyond just specifically maybe attracting just that remote worker, you know, where do you see opportunities for the state again?
Sure. I mean, that's something we're trying to help here, is help these small businesses and them start up to see that they can, again, because of COVID-19, we've brought to the forefront, we have the bandwidth in most locations, which mean, you know, that clearly we're trailing there on where you have the broadband you need to perform. That's kind of the first building block for any community to be that high piece. And then just the technologies to know that it doesn't matter if you start your company here or Boston, you're gonna be able to get those resources you need to be able to make it happen. So I think it brought it that much more to the forefront that we've seen it in small companies and big companies. They can survive remotely in COVID-19. And I mean, just growing with this, I can't remember what town it was, somewhere on the coast, where it's they're encouraging people to come as a staycation and work or something along those lines, to say rather than come for a week, come for a month, and, you know, spend your time here, spend your money here, and work a bit more here. So I think it's also a great way for us to encourage that vacation land a little bit and work a bit more while you come to vacation.
Awesome, thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions. I'll just pause for a moment here. I do have a comment about, pretty excited about SpaceX's low Earth orbit satellite-based internet. There will be much lower latency, voice, video will work better. I'll be able to work from the northern Maine woods then. Great comment. I think that is certainly, pun intended, a moonshot, but also kind of touches on not the intent of today, but kind of rural broadband connectivity. And obviously, I'm sure everybody now realizes the importance of broadband as critical infrastructure. Just any comment on that, RJ? Just the importance, obviously, of
Yeah.
good broadband connectivity. Maybe what do you have at your home or office, redundancy,
Sure.
et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, that's a key reason why Bricks ended up in Hathaway Creative Center. There's already fiber coming in here, so we're 100 by 100 static. It's fast. It can handle everybody video chatting. I think that's the biggest thing. You're at home and you're like, oh, I can watch Netflix super fast because I have this, and this from Spectrum. As soon as you start doing that upload, so you start doing your own video and getting everybody else in there, things degrade pretty quickly. And if you're in an office that has everybody doing this, or I guess you wouldn't really be in an office, but if you're home and your kids are streaming and you're trying to do this, you can definitely see that degradation. So it's a difficult thing to deal with. And again, I mean, you probably know, we're one of the worst in broadband access. So that expansion is going to be huge, and nobody high tech can start here without that broadband. So that can continue to improve.
Awesome. And so maybe, and also, RJ, do you mind just giving us just a little bit of a Bricks update on how things are,
Yeah.
the upgrades you made,
Sure.
you know, peeking into the fall? I know we're obviously not clairvoyant or don't have a crystal ball, but just kind of a short-term static snapshot, how Bricks is doing, and looking forward to getting back in with you guys, broadly speaking, and for, of course, Tech Nights.
Sure. Yes, we opened back up full time about 2 or 3 weeks ago. At this point, it's members only, so we're not doing day passes, we're not doing drop-ins, we're not renting out the conference room in the major space, just to try to keep the members as safe as humanly possible. The building has put on some good restrictions. Maine General has a couple of 100 employees upstairs too, so they've done a good job with requiring masks around the shared space and working in here. So we stepped up our cleaning in here. In our floating spaces, we took away a bunch of seats and put up sneeze guards, I think we're calling them. So just some plexiglass in between to keep people feel a little more safe about that. We spaced out all of our desks. They're actually nearly full again with some new people joining. So we're kind of maxing a little bit there. And then we've added some programming. So we had that great press release from you guys earlier this week where we're adding programming, a classroom, and a bunch of other things starting right away. Actually today, my counterpart Nick in Tortoise Labs is doing their first class around product design and getting your idea off the ground. So it's his July iteration. There's another one coming in September, which we're really excited about. Our goal was always to house that in our new Bricks classroom, which we're working on getting here in Hathaway. But for now, it's going to be remote, out of safety for everybody. So we're excited about that. Hopefully by the September one, we can at least have a hybrid class and get some more people in here. And then as the students come back, get the students back in here as well, as that's a big piece of working with the students on working their ideas and local community members. So we're pretty excited about it. So yeah, right now we're open, but we're kind of a little partially open. It's really just focused around keeping our members as safe as possible.
Awesome. And for maybe the general public and, you know, also maybe a little bit of pre-COVID, can you just remind folks your general kind of product line, if you will, in terms of what used to be single day rentals, et cetera,
Sure.
Offerings out of Bricks?
Yeah. So 3 main offerings to members. So it's a private office for $450 a month, a dedicated desk, so your own sit-stand desk and file cabinet is $250. And then a floating space, which is more like going to the coffee shop or whatever it might be, grab a seat every day, that's $150. And then we have some more flexible options off of that. There were the $20 day passes. I've seen more people uptick we do a 5-day a month floating pass for $80. And we have a lot of people that do that just so they get out of the house 1 day a month and they come here to work. So those are our main offerings. It includes everything you need from coffee and tea to the high-speed internet to printing, and just come here, sit down and start working.
Awesome. Well, unless there aren't any more questions, I will say thank you all for joining us. RJ, extremely informative, both kind of really like the context of what we're seeing with some of the broader companies, but also at the local level, what we're seeing for Maine as an opportunity while challenges certainly persist. And of course, really love seeing Bricks open right now and innovation abounding there. So thank you so much. Thank you to everybody that's joining us. Thank you to the folks that are watching this recording at a later date. This free event, again, has been presented by the Central Maine Growth Council. And thank you to our generous sponsors, in CGI, Thomas College's Harold Elfon Institute for Business Innovation, Valley Beverage, and Bricks itself, 10 Water Street in downtown Waterville, Maine. Thank you all again. The second Thursday of every month. At some point, we may go back to our evening hours. We still are getting requests for the free beer and pizza. RJ, I should have asked how we deal with that remotely. We haven't figured that out yet. But in the interim,
send pizza to everybody. Can we do that?
Yeah, pizza emojis is kind of what I've been doing, so it doesn't really, I'm not sure if that accounts. Uber Eats, yeah, that's a good one. But in the interim, we're playing with this mid-day spot. So just like how we've always been, try to be very kind of collegial with folks. If there's a topic you would like to hear on, please let us know. Similarly, if you find there's for those that don't like watching it at a later date, I know many people do, please let us know what your thoughts are on new times and or any new orientation. So with that, I'd say thank you all, and we look forward to seeing everybody next month. Thank you, RJ, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Carvin.
Thank you.